Now to an update about the very strange decision by the Victorian Electoral Commission to send basketballer Andrew Bogut a legal threatening letter for daring to share his opinion online. If you missed the story, here's a recap.
NBA and Boomers star Andrew Bogut is facing potential prosecution charges from the Victorian Electoral Commissioner after he posted critical content about Victoria's pandemic laws.
That's right. The VEC argues it is illegal to publish an opinion that is intended or likely to affect voting in an election without carrying an authorisation statement at the end. That means ordinary people supposedly have to sign off their politically charged tweets with their name and address. Crazy stuff. And whether or not the VEC is reading this law correctly, and it appears the interpretation of law is grey when it comes to private citizens, why was a Conservative athlete the only person to be bullied by the VEC over these laws? Why are people on the left of politics supposedly exempt from these rules and not receiving the letters? Here are some examples of Victorian-based Labor politicians using TikTok to share politically charged content without carrying the authorisation.
Number one, Fat Clive. What are we going to do about Fat Clive? We need to do a lot about Fat Clive because he's trying to buy the election this time around like he bought it last time.
Yet again, Scott Morrison and the government has failed to be there. They failed to prepare, they've failed to take climate change seriously. The chaos and division, he's lost control of his government and he's lost control of the parliament. Today, Scott Morrison lost it. Disgusting behaviour. He's now doing Beijing's bidding. Scott Morrison is fallen into the trap of the Chinese Communist Party.
The VEC told me it will only act on these matters if it receives a complaint. However, when we tried to get a copy of the complaint that supposedly led to the Andrew Bogut investigation, the VEC stonewalled. You see, the VEC rejected our Freedom of Information application not because it wasn't a legally valid request, but the organisation with a multi-million-dollar budget responsible for election integrity in Victoria and supposedly for policing speech in Victoria doesn't have the staff needed to find the documents. Incredible, isn't it? Let me read you a few sentences from their correspondence in which their poor planning, staffing management and budgeting is being used as an excuse to block Freedom of Information requests. Based on my availability, 7 hours per week, and with the assistance of my other officer, 3.5 hours a week, it is estimated that it would take me over 15 weeks to examine the documents and make a final decision on the request alone, the FOI officer wrote. The VEC is currently dealing with 3 active FOI requests, including this one. The VEC has received a total of 7 requests in the past 4 months, where previously we were averaging 1 request per year. In the past, resources of the VEC have been ample to deal with the number of FOI requests received. Based on the points above, the VEC has formed the view that it will take well in excess of 30 days for the request to be processed, and that processing the request in its current form and with the current resources would substantially and unreasonably divert the VEC's resources from its other operations. Now, think about how weaselly these bureaucratic tyrants are being here. They have a legislative duty to hand over these documents, if they exist at all, that is. They are not saying that these documents should be exempt from your legal right to see them, only that they designate just 10.5 hours per week to fulfilling their legal FOI duties. Dramatically understaff your FOI office and you no longer have to follow the FOI law, it seems to me. Now, compare this with the arrogant and overzealous approach the VEC took with Andrew Bogut after allegedly receiving a complaint. No special treatment for media personality. Free speech is important and everyone is free to express their opinion. The VEC encourages robust political discussion. However, if a person publishes that opinion and it is intended or likely to affect how a person votes in an election, it must be properly authorised. That's the law, and it applies to all of us, whether they be a media personality, a member of the public, political party, or a candidate in an election. A Conservative citizen threatened with thousands of dollars of fines for doing exactly what Labor politicians do every single day in Victoria. And the VEC can stonewall. But I've reported them to the Office of the Victorian Information Commissioner, which is auditing their decision to deny us access to those documents. I'm not going to let this one go. And if you are as outraged as I am about the VEC bullying private citizens for simply sharing their opinions, I promise to keep you updated. Well, Kel, let's go to you. I don't know how familiar you are with the FOI process, but we do have a problem in Australia, and I think it is broader than the Electoral Commission problem, where they are denying people access to documents because they know that these documents will make the bureaucracy look bad.
Yep. And if you can be bureaucratic enough, you can say, well, we would love to handle your freedom of information request. It's just a bit of a struggle at the moment. Come back to us when we've finished our tea break or whatever. It's a bigger worry even beyond that, because they're using a very obscure bit of the law. The bit of the law that they're using is a paragraph that talks about leaflets and electioneering material. Andrew Bogut didn't produce leaflets and electioneering material. Part of my worry, and this is what I want you to find out when you get a reply to your FOI request, is are they using this as a form of censorship? That's what it looks like. If Andrew Bogut has to provide that kind of formal identification that political advertising has to provide, then why doesn't there have to be one at the bottom of every Chris Kenny column in The Australian saying authorised by from this address? This looks to me like a potential censorship tool. Why on earth are they being so sensitive about Andrew Bogut? I've got no idea.
And why won't they give us the actual complaint so we know where the complaint was? We can confirm it wasn't coming from the government. And Sophie, I mean, the other point to make on this is they say they have the duty to follow the law with Andrew Bogut. They say, we have no choice, we have to send in this letter, it's our legislative duty, but then they ignore their other legislative duties. You know, they pick and choose which laws they adhere to.
Well, Jack, this is a serious concern, especially ahead of the Victorian election, which we have here in November this year. I think they've tried to use Andrew Bogut as an example. He has got hundreds of thousands of followers across his social media channels. He's been incredibly outspoken and called out the nonsense that the Andrews government has been peddling and pushing throughout the pandemic. And someone has obviously wanted to shut him down and make an example of him. This is a real problem for freedom of speech. They've obviously only chosen to take action on him, and now they're being all secretive about this. And as Kel said, they could have been a bit more diplomatic about it, but they're just simply using the excuse they don't have enough hours in the day. I mean, these bureaucrats are paid very well. We have an army of bureaucrats down here. And to say they don't have enough staff to do the legwork to find out who made the complaint and how it all transpired, to me sounds like a whole load of hogwash, Jack.
Yeah, well, exactly, considering that it's supposedly just one singular complaint that was made. We're talking about one document, and they supposedly would take 15 weeks to locate that one document. I don't buy it, but we'll keep asking questions.